Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. I'm excited this afternoon because I'm talking with Anna Berger from Trade. And this is something that people have asked us for, and I never knew anybody to recommend, so I think this could be a great podcast. So, Anna, tell me what Trade does and who they work for.
Absolutely. It's great to meet you. I'm Anna Berger. I'm the founder and CEO of Trade. Trade is a construction payroll, HR, and compliance software for specialty contractors.
Okay, so what does that exactly mean?
Yeah, it's really an all-in-one back office operating system for back office teams. So from employee onboarding, think digital I-9s, tax and bank account verification, through field tracking and time clocks in the field, all the way through to payroll and reporting. We do it all. So it's full labor accounting end to end.
So, how would you differ from somebody like Paychex?
I mean, Paychex just isn't really built for the construction industry, is it? Right? I hear this every day. Every single day we're bringing contractors over from legacy payroll companies like ADP and Paychex. The main reason is that those businesses do not understand the concept of variable rates. In construction, depending on where you're working, what you're working on, and who you are, meaning like, are you an apprentice? Are you a shop steward? You could be making a different rate hour to hour, day to day. Trade is designed for your rate to change as you do your job so that you get paid the correct amount. Maybe 1 hour you are doing a certain task that has a surcharge. Our system is able to capture that and pull it into payroll automatically. And then once payroll is complete, we're able to generate the really pesky certified payrolls and complex reporting that's often required for the legacy accounting systems for construction.
Okay, so let's say the question is, I mean, does it come out of your bank account? Is there a bank you work with? I mean, I guess I question how the funding works. 'Cause it's be anywhere from, 10,000 a week to 100,000 a week to whatever, right? So how does the cash flow work?
Yeah, it could be even way more than
Yeah.
$100,000, right? Depending on the size of the workforce. And really, it happens the same way it would happen with a traditional payroll company. So the business is funding payroll, but where it gets really exciting with trade is that we have multiple different payment speeds. So depending on if you need extra float or a few extra days, we can send the money out at different paces. The very standard version that contractors are used to is that 2-day ACH direct deposit. So a lot of times the funds will be pulled out of a subcontractor's account Wednesday afternoon for a Friday payday. The beautiful
Mm.
thing about our next generation technology on trade is we have multiple different payment speeds. So if you need to send the money out Thursday or even Friday, the platform is capable of doing so to make sure that, at the end of the day, your workers are paid on time and ensuring that they show up again on Monday morning.
So how does it work between, let's say I've got, pick a number, 500,000 or some, I've got a checking account with money in it. So
Yep.
how does the system work? How does it take withdrawals? Does it come straight out of my checking account, or how does it cash flow actually work? Because sometimes with payroll companies, you fund them, then they fund somebody else, and sometimes it gets a little confusing. So how does that work?
Yeah, there's no float that's happening here. So we are basically withdrawing the money from whichever account you have synced to trade. If that's your checking account, great, but it could also be coming from a savings account or another pot of funds. And so that is where the money is withdrawn from. And, it's held during that 2-day processing and it kind of shoots out the door. That is the very standard ACH timelines. But if you want the money held for less time, there's also 1-day ACH and next day pay that's available.
Now, what if they're still old school and using like paper checks?
Yeah, we see that all the time. I think, paper checks ensure float, right? It gives contractors around 3 extra days for their money to clear
Depending
between
if you're in
printing out.
Hawaii, it could be a week. Depends on the mail, right?
Yeah, sure, exactly. So by the time they print out the checks, which can be printed out in-house with trade. So once the post payroll is ready for review, you would just press download paper checks and you're able to hand them out. You don't need to wait for ADP or Paychex to send them to your door. So from there, once the checks are actually distributed, and once those checks are then put into the bank account and then deposited, and you're looking at 2 to 3 extra days. And so that's an obvious reason why contractors would still prefer to hold on to paper checks, which is not something that we discourage. We try to meet our contractors exactly where they are and improve what we can.
Okay. So, and then what about all those requirements about the paycheck stubs that have where the deductions are, so who pays all those deductions to all the people you're supposed to pay them to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So trade is doing all of the withholdings and payroll remittance. So we are responsible for the quarterly and annual tax filings, state by state. So whether a contractor is in a single state or in 9 states, we will do all of the filings. Our tax engine determines the tax reciprocity. So a classic example is if someone lives in New Jersey but works in New York City, how should they be taxed? And that is what our tax engine does. It determines the reciprocity and what those rates should be and files accordingly so that the contractor stays in complete and total compliance.
So let's say, because in California is one of those states, they love all those things.
Tricky.
Right? And so you've got everything from, I don't know, unemployment. There's like at least 5 or 10 different things, right? Depending on where they are and all that kind of stuff. So how does your system, does it track all that stuff? Send where we're supposed to send to, keep all the records? How does that actually work?
Exactly. So in the tax portal within a contractor's trade login, they will see all of the remittance that we will send out on a monthly or quarterly or even annual basis. They can keep track, but we are doing that for them. So during the onboarding process, we will present a very clear list of everything we will file on behalf of the company. And if there is a, state by state, sometimes Massachusetts doesn't follow the same rules as New York. And so our list is very clear about what trade is responsible for and what the contractor is responsible for. If the contractor is responsible for certain remittance payments, we will set alerts and reminders to make sure that they stay in compliance.
Okay, so like unemployment, health insurance, well, all that other stuff, you take care of all.
Disability, SUTA, everything. Yes, you name it.
Okay. All right. And then, so then I assume the accounting, or it goes into QuickBooks or someplace, who gets all the information so they can do their taxes and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so what trade is really great at is generating the exact payroll journal that is needed for the contractor's accounting system. We have really, really strong integrations today across the board with QuickBooks, with Sage, with Foundation, with Trimble. And so we don't discriminate against accounting systems. We recognize that, everyone has their own needs and has gravitated towards certain partners that fit those needs. And so trades payroll journals can be uploaded into those various platforms to account for like the total labor cost and the burdening.
Okay. And then can they get any kind of an accounting, because by job or by something, because sometimes they want to know, job costing sort of integrates with payroll. Sometimes there are APIs that do it, some APIs don't do it. So is there any way to integrate this with job costing, or they just got to figure that out their own?
No, the whole idea of trade is to give a contractor a single data source, right? And so not only are we tracking payroll, but we are also tracking material and equipment costs. And there's more coming in the months ahead to really give contractors that in real time job costing. I remember my dad always saying to me, I didn't give this context early on in our podcast, but I'm from a construction family. And so I felt this growing up watching my dad. I kept hearing him say, I'm flying blind. I never know how I'm doing on a project, right? Until maybe it was 90 days too late and there was no chance to recover. The whole value prop of trade is to give the contractor the insights in the time frame in which they can still do something about it. Right. And that is the core of job costing. You need to truly understand what your spend is on this project in relation to how far the project is in its life cycle to make sure you're going to walk away making some money.
Well, now Procore, Buildertrend, JobTread, all of these software claim they do some of that. And I don't know if you have APIs to integrate with those, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's definitely API capabilities available. I would say for the contractors that we work with, Procore is not typically part of their tech stack today. Procore is a really, really expensive tool. right? Like, and that's not my own personal knowledge. That's what my contractors have told me,
Right.
right? They would love to use it, but unfortunately they can't afford it. And so I think that that's a fundamental issue with some construction software that's out there is they've made a tool that is specific to this industry that so many people need, but there's a barrier to entry. I don't
Right.
believe in that.
But what if like JobTread or Builder Trend or some of them was less expensive than Procore? Do you know with those?
Yeah. Yeah, so JobTread is a company that I have heard, being used amongst our audience. And listen, it's a great job tracking software. They don't focus so much on labor and payroll, which is where, we really come in and shine.
Okay. So if I have same mind JobTread and I've got your system, how do I look at JobTread and they're trying to come out with all my costs on a job and you're coming up with payroll? Do I have to
Yeah.
look at two spreadsheets or I put them on a Google sheet or how does that work?
In a perfect world, you would take the data coming off of JobTread into an Excel that you would upload into Trade, and Trade would be your final dashboard.
Okay. Sounds good. So how does your cost compare with payroll and EDP and the rest of the kind of people that do what you do?
From a payroll perspective, I think we're pretty apples to apples. Most payroll companies charge on a per employee per month basis, which is how we are um, basically priced as well. And then we have a bunch of other add-on features around it, right? It's not just payroll. One of the things I like to illustrate early on in the sales cycle is in order to run perfect payroll and construction, you really do need a deep understanding of who's on your workforce, what projects are happening, and where everything is going down. And so around payroll, we have HR tools, people management, scheduling, shift automation, and all of that will round out the platform costs.
Now, do you integrate with a lot of people have like time tracking on their phones or something like that? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Do you
Yep.
have something that integrates with them, or do you have something that works on people's phones because they go from job to job? And a lot of people, I
Yep.
mean, if you're really antique, you still have paper things they fill out, but most people have gone
Yeah.
away from that. And they've got something on their phone that tracks where they are, and they put on their phone what they spent and what they haven't spent, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not even really antique, right? Like I work with companies that have, been around for 10 years, relatively young owners. They're doing 50 million a year in revenue and they're tracking 150 guys on pen and paper. I see it every day, and it's not so surprising. For us, we do have our own proprietary field software. We not only have a worker app, which is relevant for both people in the back office and people in the field, but we also have a foreman platform designed for site leadership to handle the clock ins, reporting out on any task codes, activities, toolbox talks, any accidents that happen that day.
So can for example, you can use whatever the codes are in QuickBooks or something for tracking, installing a door versus putting on a floor versus putting on a roof. And I assume that
Yep,
the worker has his phone that says, yeah, I was here, I did this, doing this and this, and somehow ties in the general ledger. And then the foreman can approve that or not approve that as something like that.
exactly, exactly. So talking about that holistic closed loop ecosystem, when we migrate your business onto Trade, we are doing that historical data migration from wherever this payroll data is living today or any task code data is living today. And we're making sure all of the task codes are consistent in this new environment, right? And so whether it's piping, excavating, flooring, right? Things could have different tasks, different rates. All of that will map to the activity happening in the accounting portal.
Okay, now one of the questions that always comes up for companies, especially in payroll, is customer support. I mean,
Yeah,
something doesn't work and they call Paychex, they call DDP and they get somebody, and they can't get to the person who can make the decision because it's
totally.
a big company, they have no clue and they go like, I know with payrolls this week, we'll get back to you in a week and a half and tell you where it messed up, right? So
Totally,
how
totally.
is your customer support?
I would say I think it's one of the things I'm most proud of is our customer support division. So everyone on the Trade team sits in our New York City office, and that includes the customer success agents. Every account has their own dedicated account manager who is like deeply in the weeds on how we brought on the account, what information we had, how many people, what they're looking for. If there's anything trade doesn't have today, but they're hoping for us to build, we're working on that roadmap together with our customers. We're available around the clock. There's always on-call agents. Something that I have always struggled with, as I've learned so much about ADP and Paychex over the years, is like, they could sit on a void or a correction for over 21 days. And
Yeah.
if that void or correction is $50, $100, when you think about the end user here, that's a meal for a full family. This is a paycheck to paycheck demographic, and to hold back those wages and to not give them access to their hard-earned money, it's a real problem. And so our SLAs, or our response times in another way, really mirror the urgency of getting people their money as and when they need it.
Okay, so if I've got a guy who calls him and says, look there's 2 hours overtime there. Here's what I did. I didn't get paid for it. And can you fix it? You're telling
Yep.
me within 28 to 40 hours, you can figure out how to get him paid.
You're talking 1 to 2 hours, not 28 to 24 to 48.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so almost sounds good to be true, but let's believe it's true.
I know. Listen,
Ah,
I that's what everyone says, but we continue to put our money where our mouth is.
okay, sounds good. So if people are interested in this, and everybody has some form, I mean, very few people are on payroll these days, occasionally, but
Right.
they're using some service, right? So
Sure.
there's always the paranoia of, you know, what is it? The bad I know is better than the bad I don't know. There's some saying like that, right? And so they're probably afraid to go, well, it's not perfect, but it at least works. And this is the core, this is like how people get paid. I can't mess with this, right? So what if they're afraid? And I can picture somebody listening now, well, it sounds really good, but I've been on Paychex for 10 years, or I've been ADP for 5 years or 8 years, and I know it works. It's got a lot of problems, but at least it works. How can you help them get over the emotional roller coaster of making that transition? Because it's pretty scary for small guys.
I completely get it. I'm a business owner myself, right? And making any foundational updates to software is jarring. So I think there's part of this is relationship building over time, right? And knowing that I'm not just like a talking head on a podcast, but I'm in the trenches, right? I'm in the office every day. I'm fighting these battles, and we have really long-standing customer relationships. And ultimately what I would say is this is a conversation bigger than payroll. This is a conversation around compliance and finding better margins for your business, right? Like if I were to sit down with a contractor and have a 5-minute discovery call with them, I imagine I would uncover that they're either using 5 or 6 different software systems that could be doing the job of one. And that likely involves multiple different people working on those 5 or 6 different systems.
Right.
So there's an opportunity for consolidation across the board. And then beyond that, from a compliance standpoint, not only are we protecting time shaving lawsuits, but we are ensuring complete and total tax compliance. We are, especially with multi-state contractors, we are processing and handling all of the certified payrolls or prevailing wage override reports that need to happen. And so as contractors take on bigger bids, more federal work, projects that require an obscene amount of reporting, trade has your back. Right. And so not only that, one more piece here, digital I-9 capture that's then stored in an encrypted vault so that the contractors are audit ready at any moment. And so when I sit down with a business owner, it's like, do you want to future-proof this business for the next decade, right? And set yourselves up for success. That's really what we're going for here. It is so far beyond just payroll.
But it's still scary. I mean, if you look at this,
Totally.
every time they update my phone, I get freaked out because like, oh my God, I lost all this stuff. And then I try to call Apple, I can't get a hold of them. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, my contacts have disappeared and I don't know where they went, right? Because I hit the wrong button somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and contractors are a little bit Luddites when it comes to tech. They're just not tech oriented. It's a group, right? And this is all tech.
I'm not confirming or denying.
Okay, but I've done this for 50 years. It's scary, right? So you've got all this software. It's dealing with the core of your business is money and getting paid and banking and all that kind of stuff. So if someone is considering it, and even they're a little paranoid, look at, I don't know how bad it is, how could they at least explore the possibility with you?
Yeah, I mean, our sales cycles could be 1 to 2 calls or a couple of
Mhm.
weeks. And in that time, not only are they meeting with me, but they're meeting with the technical leaders on the team, really to understand that their data is in good hands. We have tons of customers that have testimonials and use cases and case studies that I'm happy to share and circulate. We we really believe in what we're doing, and we've had contractors with us for the long haul. And I think there's a lot of proof in that.
Okay, well, then I would suggest, even if you're a little paranoid, which I would be to do this, if you give Anna a call or get a hold of her company, I'm sure she can at least walk you through your fears. I mean, I don't
Of
question that it's
course.
better. I really don't. But technology, even though it's better, sometimes the user interfaces or the adopt having the guys in the field adopt it, it's a mess. I mean, I've been with software for 30 years of the contract. I mean, when I started, they were using pagers, right? So,
Right.
um, and it is a place where they could improve, but they're afraid to because they've been there, done that. It hasn't worked,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
I guess if they can start off with just talking to you, and you can sort of walk them through what you can say to them, how it can work, and it doesn't hurt anything to just give you a call, right?
Definitely not. I'm always available. And I would say in the opposite direction, I don't sell this software lightly. If a contractor isn't a fit for trade, I'm not going to push it on them, right?
Mhm.
It's like there needs to be a mutual fit on both sides for this to be a worthwhile endeavor, right? There's a lot of effort that is put into the migration and the onboarding and the training, which my team really does the heavy lifting on that. But there needs to be buy-in from the contractor as well, that this is the right thing for the business right now. And so, trade, it requires attention. And so I
Okay.
think in that first discovery call, when I do sit down with a contractor to understand where are you at? What are your priorities? Are your priorities cleaning up back of house and streamlining and creating efficiencies here so that you can win bigger in the field? All
Mhm.
right, let's now talk.
Okay. All right. So I would suggest, I don't doubt that this is technology that people listening to this. Is there any company that's too small? I mean, what is your, I mean, a lot of guys listening to this are two guys in a truck or four guys. I mean, they have
Yeah,
like 2 to 5 or 10 employees. Is that too small for you?
it's not. I refer to them as man in a van. And they are just as deserving as this software as anybody else. I have had the absolute pleasure of watching several contractors who started with 3 or 4 or 5 people in like bring trade into their back office and then explode. They're now at 18, 20, 28 different people, right? That are operating all off of this back office system without needing back office staff to help manage that growth. And
Right.
that is a tremendous success story.
That's a huge savings because it costs a lot of people to figure all this stuff out. So,
Absolutely.
okay, well, thank you. And I don't doubt that most people listening this can use your service. They just have to get over their fear of taking the first step and at least checking it out. So I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And listen, it never hurts to just explore it, right? You never know what's on the other side. And at the end of the day, if I can just show someone what does exist so that their mind is open and, as they go about their day, it will stay in the back of their mind of what is possible, right? And what does exist for these contractors.
A lot of people literally don't know what they don't know. Well,
Of
thank you,
course
Anna.
not.
Appreciate you being here.
Oh, my pleasure.